Okay, it's 6:33. I'm going to call this meeting of the Lawndale City Council to order. I'm going to ask Madam City Clerk to give us the roll call, please.
Got all my papers here. Thank you. Let's see, Councilmember Suarez?
Here.
Councilmember Cuevas?
Here.
Councilmember Kearney?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman Gorman?
Here.
Mayor Poland Miles?
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you, Madam. Next item on our agenda is our ceremonial portion. I'm going to ask Councilmember Pat Kearney to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And we're joined tonight for the inspiration by Pastor Jeffrey M. Lewis from the New Antioch Church of God in Christ. He will lead us in a word of inspiration.
I see no hat, so place your right hand over your heart and repeat along with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Pastor.
No problem. Good evening, everyone. David in Psalm 15 asks a question, who will worship in the sanctuary, Lord, who may enter your presence or your holy hill? The response was, those who lead blameless lives and do what is right, speaking the truth with sincere hearts. Those who refuse to gossip or harm their neighbors or speak evil of their friends. The response was, those who despise fragrant wrongdoers and honor the faithful following the Lord and keep their promises even when it hurts. He said, those who lend money without taking advantage and who cannot be bribed to lie about the innocent. He said, such people will stand, such people will be secure. He said they never have to worry because what they have built will last forever. Let us pray. We thank you, Father, for this day. We thank you for this gathering. We thank you for the esteemed team of leadership that you have built here in Lawndale. We ask that you continue to lead, guide, and direct. Bless this city. Bless every decision that is made. God, let what comes out of this meeting, even on tonight, let it be productive. Let the individuals who speak, God, let what they say, let it be understood. And I thank you now that this shall be a productive night. In the name of your Son, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Lewis, for those wonderful words of encouragement and inspiration. Thank you for being here tonight. It's always an honor to attend your church services, and it's an honor to have you here tonight. Thank you, sir. Okay, with that, let's have our public safety report. Okay. Let's hear from our sheriff department.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Lieutenant Jose Salgado, South Los Angeles Station. I met you guys last time I was here. I do not have my business cards yet. I did get an email stating that they're on the mail, so I should get them next couple of days.
Okay, they're on the way.
So with that, so good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm here tonight to present the Public Safety Report for August 2nd, 2022 through August 15th, 2022. On August 7th at approximately 0010 hours, Deputy Hovhanessian conducted a stop of a vehicle near 160th Street and Hawthorne Boulevard for traffic violations. Upon contacting the occupants of the vehicle, he smelled the odor of burnt marijuana emitting from the vehicle. In plain view, he saw a green leafy substance wrapped in a brown piece of paper located on the center console of the vehicle. He detained the driver pending a narcotic search. Upon searching the vehicle, he located a firearm on the front passenger floorboard. Under Miranda, the suspect stated the firearm belonged to him. He arrested the suspect for the possession of a firearm in a vehicle, and the suspect was a resident of the city of Lawndale. On August 15th at approximately 0630 hours, Deputies DeJong conducted a traffic stop at Rosecrans Avenue and Prairie Avenue and contacted a suspect regarding expired registration. During the investigation, it was discovered that the suspect had methamphetamine, psilocin, and a scale inside his vehicle. The suspect was arrested for possession of narcotics for sales. The suspect was a resident of the city of Hawthorne. And this concludes the report. I would be happy to answer any questions. You may
Okay.
have some.
Thank you for that report, Lieutenant. Are there any questions of Lieutenant's safety report?
I have none.
All right, thank you, sir.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you
Have
for
a
the
good
report. All right, now we are on oral communications. This is when you have the opportunity to speak to this body, being the Lawndale City Council, on items that are not on the agenda. If you would like to speak to this body, we ask that you line up by the flag. When it becomes your turn, if you would come to the podium, if you would start with your name first, we would be greatly appreciative. At about 2.5 minutes, the amber light will come on and give you the signal to start wrapping things up. Let's have our first speaker, Mr. Adams.
Gary Adams. I was totally flabbergasted at the last meeting when a representative from RJ's made what I understand, believe, and contend were bold-faced lies. The ongoing illegal activity is, in my opinion, evidence of this. The following day, they had West Coast Sand and Gravel make a delivery, and they parked their trailer unattended on 156 just east of Inglewood. A couple days later, their trailer was parked under the 405 freeway illegally on the red line. These are just a couple examples. I don't have time to watch them 24/7. I wrote to each of the city council persons, the mayor pro tem, the city manager, the acting community development manager. I've gotten response only from the city manager. The illegal activity, as I stated in my email, is believed to be a conspiracy which was started in circa 1981. I've complained about this for many years, and it was kind of sickening. The RJ representative was whining and carrying on that he was being picked on. It's like getting stopped for speeding and you get a traffic ticket. That's basically, he's whining because he got caught, which to me is ridiculous. And I don't think the city did make some very good progress, but it does not go near far enough, in my opinion. The conspiracy, as I contend, started again in 1981 with the destruction of at least 2 residential lots on the then R2 lot facing Gravilla and the R2 lot facing Manziel, subsequently changed to R3. There was no permits for this under law at the time. Under current law, there must be a permit for destruction of residential property. Under state SB 330, currently you cannot legally, by state law, remove a residence without replacing it, my understanding, of course. On this illegal activity that was started back in '81, the driveways were across the entire lot widths and gates the same. These far exceed the permissible widths of gates and driveways for residential properties. Also, the lots were paved 100% with concrete, no landscaping, which I consider development. Again, no permit of any kind. I would request that the city provide in writing what corrective action will be required. My contention is, since there was
Time has
illegal
expired.
destruction of residences, that those residences
Go ahead and wrap it up for me.
should be replaced. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any others wishing to speak to this body?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Juan Carlos Alvarado. I live in 15521 Prairie Avenue. I'm the guy with the flooding into the house, and I'm just wondering, what's going on. I've been talking actually to the guys that supposedly are going to take care of my house, of the fixing, and apparently one of them he's leaving, which is one, you would know his name is Julian or something like that. And so right now I'm just wondering if it's going to be repaired, because right now winter's coming up, and I mean it's very difficult. Plus, you got the school year coming up too, so I don't know how long is this going to take to to try to get fixed. And the other problem too is the front of my house that, apparently the pictures that I gave you guys in the last meeting that I was here, they haven't been given to any of these new people that are gonna take care of the issue. Because they were wondering, they're like, well, we don't know how the water flows and this and that. I said, well, I gave you guys pictures. I don't know what happened to them. So if they want copies again, please let me know, okay? Because this matter needs to be taken care of. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm like this in a house, like in the middle of the ocean. So I'm floating in the middle. The water comes in like that, and next thing we're gonna end up is with a big old hole in the neighborhood. Okay, so please, I'm asking you guys in a good way, and I hope this matter gets taken care of, soon. Plus I don't want to be affecting the kids too with the schooling here. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, with that, we'll close public comments, and we'll bring it up to the dais for any comments from the council. Let's start with Councilmember Pat Kearney.
I was going to thank the two gentlemen that spoke tonight. I will speak on Juan Carlos's. Maybe the city manager can give an update on what's happening with that?
That's on the agenda for item number 9.
Okay, there you go. And with that, I'll pass it on to my colleague to my, let me see, right.
He took up, well, Councilmember Kearney took up most of the talking points, but thank you to everybody that came out and spoke tonight. With regards to RJ's, I think at this point it's an ongoing case, and so we have limited of what we can discuss in the public forum. So with that, I'll pass it along. Thank you.
Councilwoman Cuevas.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out and speaking, and that will be all.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoffman Gorman.
Same as the past two. We are restricted on what we can say in regards to RJs. And if the city attorney would like to explain that, that would be great. And Juan Carlos, I hope you hear what you need to hear tonight in number 9. Thank you.
Sure, I think actually Councilmember Suarez said it best. This is, staff is taking action right now, so it's not appropriate to get into any back and forth on the record. Thank you, Councilmember, for putting it so clearly.
That's it. Yeah, I want to thank also the two gentlemen who spoke as well, and I think it was all covered. I was going to say exactly what you ladies and gentlemen said, and the city attorney. So thank you for all those comments. With that, we will close public comments and comments from the council, bring it back to the diocese, continue with our agenda on item F, which is the consent calendar. There's 5 items on the consent calendar. What is the pleasure of this body concerning such?
I'll motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Cuevas that we approve the consent calendar, and seconded by Mr. Pat Kearney. Are there any discussions on the motion? Seeing none, would the council please vote on the consent calendar?
For the consent calendar, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next item, item G, under administration, regarding approval of a resolution to amend a memorandum of understanding between the city of Lawndale and Afsc. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. The items before you this evening for your consideration and approval are amendments to the Afsc MOU, the Central Management Team Resolution, the fiscal year 2022-2023 citywide pay and salary schedule, and a request for budget amendments to fund the citywide classification and compensation recommended changes. The last time the city administrated a study was in 2006-2007. It is necessary to periodically revise the city's classification plan to ensure the organizational goals of efficiency, productivity, effectiveness are met, as well as assist with recruitment and retention efforts. During the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget process, and as a result of the negotiations between the city and Afsc, City Council approved the request to conduct a citywide classification and compensation study to review all salary and benefits for all classifications. The study began in August of 2021, and the city received the results in April of 2022, which were presented to the city's employee groups for review. In brief, the study results found that the city's positions-based salary on average were approximately 7% behind market and 19% behind market when factoring in total compensation, which includes both salary and benefits. The city's negotiation team, as well as Afsc, initiated good faith discussions and exchanged proposals to determine a cost-effective and equitable way to implement the study. With the direction from City Council, the city negotiations team received direction to bring all applicable positions identified in the study to be behind market to market base and place all positions on a new structured salary schedule. As a result, the parties continued discussions and reached an agreement which Afsc voted on and accepted on August 2nd and being presented to you this evening. The total cost to implement the salary study results to bring applicable positions identified by the study to be behind market to market and place all positions on the new structural salary schedule effective July 1 for fiscal year 2022-2023 is $339,424. During the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget process, City Council set aside $300,000 to cover the costs of the study. In order to implement the study, staff is now requesting an additional $39,424 from general fund to be allocated to fully fund the proposed salary study results. Once the implementation of the salary study results are approved, this will trigger the need to also approve and adopt an amendment to the previously adopted citywide salary pay schedule for fiscal year 2022-2023. Further, during the study process, staff requested that the consultant review the community development manager and budgeted senior planner positions to provide a recommendation should the city decide to reorganize the department. Staff reviewed the consultant's recommendation and determined that at this time, the best organizational and structural options for the community development department would be to defund the director of community development and reclassify the senior planner to the community development manager. This change will allow for the continuity of department management and services to the community. Other than approving the requested department budget adjustment, there are no further actions from council that is needed or requested on this matter other than approving this change. This departmental change would also generate a departmental budget savings of approximately $151,442. At this point, that concludes my report, and staff is respectfully recommending that City Council adopt Resolution CC 220804, approving the First Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Lawndale and Afsc, adopt Resolution CC 220804, approving the Third Amendment to the amended and restated salary schedule of benefits for CMT, approve the budget adjustment to reorganize the Community Development Department by reclassifying the senior planner position to the Community Development Manager and defunding the Community Development Director position in the department's budget, adopt Resolution CC 2208-043 to approve the amendment to the 2022-2023 citywide salary and pay schedule, and approve a budget adjustment transfer of $39,424 from the general fund to various special revenue funds. I'm available to answer any questions you may have. It was.
That was a mouthful.
It was.
That was a mouthful. Could you repeat the last part? The recommendation? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I fell asleep on the first one.
That was a lot.
It was a lot. I tried to condense it as much as possible, but it was a lot of information that I felt was important for me to share with you this evening.
And we appreciate that. Thanks for the report. Are there any questions on the report? Anything to share on the report?
If not, I'll make a recommendation with Roylette's, what she read with attachments 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Absolutely. And 5.
And 5.
There's
Just
a
want to see
5
if you're awake. My attachment only has, my book only has 4.
She said 4, but there's 5.
1, 2, 3, 4.
She said 5, but there's only 4.
The council member's right. There are 4 attachments, but there were 5 actions.
Okay,
Thank you both.
4 attachments. There you go.
She slipped one in on us.
Okay.
A total of 5.
But anyway, that's my motion.
Okay, so the motion's been made that we accept the staff report, including the 5 attachments. Are there any discussion on the motion? Let's have a second first.
I'll second that.
So the motion's been made by Pat Kearney that we approve the staff recommendation, and seconded by Councilwoman Cuevas. Is there any discussion on the motion? Why he laughing at me? Seeing none, with the council, please vote.
For item number 6, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the report. All right, next item on the agenda. That would be 6. Item number 7 is the 2020 General Plan, Hawthorne Boulevard Specific Plan Update Workshop. Let's have the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Pullen Miles and council members. Today I'm going to be giving you a workshop to hear your feedback regarding the general plan and Hawthorne Boulevard specific plan updates. We did go to Planning Commission about 2 weeks ago, and we heard feedback from the Planning Commission, which I included in the staff report. I am going to go ahead and start this presentation. So first of all, what is the general plan? So our general plan is a document that we put together to achieve a community's vision of the future. This document belongs to the community of Lawndale, and we have several public hearings and community workshops in order to get the information of what the community of Lawndale wants for the vision of Lawndale. It has 8 mandatory elements, and our general plan includes two elements that are optional, which are the economic development element and the air quality element. Our mandatory elements would be land use element, the noise element, the housing element, which we just actually approved but City Council. We brought it to City Council. It was approved and is in the process of being certified by the Housing and Community Development Department from the state. And then it includes open space, conservation, circulation, and safety. Moving on to the next document that we are going to be updating, which is our Hawthorne Boulevard specific plan. This is the only specific plan that we have for the city of Lawndale, and it is a document that is just a step below the general plan. So this document is used to put together our more particular or specific standards to an area. So in this case, it would be a portion of Rosecrans, Hawthorne Boulevard, Artesia, and Redondo Beach Boulevard. One of our elements is the housing element. It has is one of the 7, now 8 mandatory elements, as the economic, the environmental justice element is a new required element by the state. And this one embodies the policies for providing adequate housing. So as we did bring it up to you a couple of months ago for approval, we are still in the process of getting this document certified by HCD. We did receive a few comments back to them, so we will be bringing this back to you with the comments from HCD so that you can take a look at this portion of the general plan. And we included the regional housing needs assessment. So the RENA, which was allocated from the state, the 2,497 units. So we picked some sites that would be adequate for housing, and again, we adopted that, sent over to HCD, and we're almost at the end of getting that certified. These are the sites that were picked for the housing element. And some of the areas for the housing element that were updated were the Hawthorne Boulevard specific plan area and areas outside of the Hawthorne plan, which are located within Prairie, and Prairie, Artesia, so Prairie and Redondo Beach at the bottom. So these areas here, and all of these were picked for housing sites. So anything that's not within the Hawthorne plan, so anything here in Prairie and at the bottom, and over here at Marine, those are included in the in the overlay that will be required to meet certain affordable housing units requirements in order for them to increase the density and build more units. So we're gonna go ahead and start the workshop portion of it. So I have some questions that we'd like to hear feedback from the council. So one of them would be what type of development is needed in the city of Lawndale, industrial, commercial, public spaces, et cetera. And this is an example here of one of the questions that was asked in one of the surveys that were conducted for the public of what they would like to see within the city of Lawndale. So they chose mostly restaurants, shops, public gatherings, and entertainment areas. So we are ready to hear your comments for the first question. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is like an open format with back and forth with the council and staff.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I think they hit it right on the nail in terms of the need to have more restaurants in the community and to have more of a walkable, community for like nightlife kind of activities or weekend activities, if you will, more of a kind of like an attraction, destination, if you will, where people from outside the city will come to patronize our business. So I do like the fact that they hit that. That's spot on, that element. There's many elements that we can all agree on. So rather than me share all the elements that I agree on, that I think should be in there, I'd let the council jump in there and go on a couple of elements.
I can go next.
Yeah,
So
yes, ma'am.
So I guess in terms of what I kind of saw, like through the pandemic and all, is kind of a shift in the way that people, how they go, what they go out for. So definitely the restaurants seem to be a big one that promotes people getting out there. It seems to be one of those things too where people go out for like a different experience, I guess. So maybe somewhat in the entertainment, but I've seen, some people have like, I don't know, a comedy club or something like that. That seems to drive when there's something to do, and then people go next door to do like a eating beforehand or something of that nature. So it'd be nice if we can kind of get maybe some type of entertainment and then surround it with eateries. That way people have, like the mayor mentioned, a destination spot to go to. Shops, I guess I'm a little bit, I'm trying to wonder what kind of shops people would go to in terms of like retail. I know a lot of people do online shopping and all that. But, I definitely think if you combine some of those and you set the plan up to where it is a destination spot, that might get people to come out and, again, treat it as like a nightlife or a family gathering, something to get out there or meet with friends and family and whatnot.
Oh, so you go next?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking more like Melrose Avenue, where it has the small boutique family shops, and small restaurants, not your chain restaurants. That way, you walk a couple of blocks between coffee shops, knickknacks, you buy souvenirs, and if we're gonna make it a destination, something like Melrose Avenue, where you have your small boutique stores and your small restaurants, different style of restaurants. That would be really nice to have, especially if you're driving northbound on Hawthorne, then you could stop anywhere and get a coffee or pastries, small bites.
Very good. Small bites. Anybody else? What else? You see anything?
Well, number 5 was fifth highest, I guess it was other. What's other?
What's number 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So just in general, it would be other and the other.
And I'm totally shocked there's no professional offices on there at all.
The only thing I'd like to add to it is I'd like to see Lawndale have a bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that
And I'm
before.
not seeing bank anywhere listed, but that would be an added benefit.
Definitely, yes.
But the top 4 look fine to me.
I would do less medical services I know it's purple there and it's kind of in the top, but less of that and maybe more hotels. Jobs
And-
is very important, but if we bring small businesses, then the jobs will be there.
Then, of course, I would imagine that means variety of housing choices, okay. That, yeah, definitely a variety of housing choices, particularly on the Boulevard, which of course is what we're speaking of. In terms of mixed-use development, where people can live, obviously, we know what mixed use is, people can live and they can shop, the same, complex or what have you, would definitely, attract, people, what do they call it? Folks that, younger folks that work at, these tech companies and things of that nature. They may have a small family or what have you. Those are the type of elements that they look for in terms of mixed use. So I think that would, Hawthorne Boulevard would be obviously an excellent place for that type of development. So I guess that would speak to your, when you say the variety of housing, so that could be anywhere from, of course, condos or townhouses to mid to luxury, apartments, a mixer.
Thank you. So that takes me to my next question, but before I go there, I just want to kind of show how housing or our community affects our housing, because that was one of the comments that we've gotten before, that that they wanted to see uses, that the community wants to see uses that actually make a better place to live. So some of the uses like theaters, restaurants, coffee shops, public transportation, schools, grocery stores, and museums would be a benefit to the community versus gun ranges, funeral homes, power plants, hospitals, cemeteries, homeless shelters, foreclosed homes, waste management and recycling, noisy or messy neighbors, etc.
Yeah.
So that would be some of the uses, examples of the uses that would not make a livable or happy community. And to that, moving on to the next question, which would be what potential benefits of new growth area are of most interest to you? So some examples would be additional jobs, more of like open space or places to gather, an increased economy, or like increased value of homes. So those would be some of the examples. So that would be a question for
us
for
to
the council.
You didn't phrase it in the form of a question.
Oh, excuse me.
It's right there. I personally think that I would like to see our citizens to be able to work in the city and not have to travel. So the hiring, and then the more open spaces portion where if you have a piece of land that you could do a mixed use with a small, little park in the middle, like the picture that you have on the right, top right.
Piggybacking off of that, with open spaces, like for a good example would be like Manhattan Village Mall. They do all there's a green space in the middle, and they've been having like concerts in the park, and then people dine and shop there and also enjoy like the entertainment. So that's a great one, and definitely agree on the jobs. It'd be great to create a space where you can kind of do everything in the city that you live in. So I agree with those points.
She just reminded me, in Hollywood on, I think, Robertson, there is a multiplex. Underneath is, your shops, you have your homes, and on the top, they have a rooftop garden, and during the day, it's open to the public. So they go up and they could take their coffees or whatever they buy downstairs to the upstairs. So that would be nice to have here too. If we don't have the open space on the bottom, do it up top.
That's kind of like the vision for the mall, for the South Bay Galleria. as they redevelop that mall, of course, there's going to be some housing. There's also a feature to where it's a public gathering, open spaces and things of that nature. So not only will people be able to shop and live there, but there's a gathering place as well. So I can see that happening, of course, on Hawthorne, on Boulevard, as well. More of a gathering places as well as the living where you work, live and work. Live, work, and gather, that kind of thing. Yeah, that'd be good.
Well, and
What you
I'm
got?
thinking in a different vein altogether. With as many hits as some of our property owners are going to take with some of the upcoming changes that our community is going to be seeing in the next 30 or so years, I think it's important too that whatever is happening out on the boulevard not only represent tax dollars that come in to pay for sheriff services and things that we need to pay for as a community, but it also that it helps stabilize some of our property values, because right now I think it's pretty turbulent and with some of the things going on ahead of us.
Anything else?
I'm good. The ladies.
All right.
All right, so we're gonna move on. So what potential aspects of new growth are of most concern for you? So this is on the other side. What do you see Lawndale's being the negative effect of growth? Examples would be crime, traffic, parking issues that like we already have, or just overpopulation in general or overconstruction.
Yeah, obviously we don't want to overdevelop. I mean, you got communities in LA County that's obviously overdeveloped. I mean, when you go towards the marina, man, I thought that was overdeveloped 10 years ago. And you go to marina now, they have, I haven't been over there in the last year, but they have buildings that just came online. You're talking about, 1,000 unit complexes, and there's a few of them too. And I used to work with this certain person, and I would go over to the house, and then when I saw this development, I said, it's already congested over here, and they got about 3 or 4 of these buildings coming online. So certainly we want to make sure that we don't overdevelop. But at the same time, even though, let's go back to traffic, even though traffic is, no one wants to be in traffic, it's a nightmare when you're in traffic. And when you go down Hawthorne Boulevard going, when you cross over into Redondo / Torrance, the traffic really picks up, going towards Palos Verdes or what have you. But as you notice, the traffic picks up there, but if you notice, one of the reasons why the traffic picks up there is because all the amenities that one could avail themselves of, the businesses or what have you, going south rather than north. When you get to, Lawndale, Hawthorne, or what have you, it's not as many amenities. So I can see, plus you got the freeway, half of them jumped on the freeway, of course, as well. So I can see why there's more traffic going south. But at the same time, when you talk about traffic, you have opportunities. Anytime someone does a business, as you know, most people, they do the traffic count, right? They want to know how many trips per day, right? Because trip per day represents potential, customers represent potential tax base, increase or what have you. So traffic in and of itself is not bad if people have a destination where they can actually patronize your community or what have you. So we're going to have some traffic. We're going to have some, because the population just growing, period. So I think it's just incumbent upon us to make sure that we take advantage of the traffic rather than say, oh, we're not going to have any traffic. But knowing that we're going to have some traffic, we need to have a reason for people to pull over, as they're going, to Palos Verdes, or they're going to Torrance or what have you, going home or what have you, because they got a freeway, if they took Hawthorne all the way down. And so traffic's something we have to kind of take a look at, but not be overly concerned if you're actually developing businesses where people can patronize.
And then my concern is more, I think, not so much with of what we're looking at, but kind of the state mandates that have been imposed upon us. That's more of my concern, because in this aspect, I think we can kind of control and figure out how we want the growth to go. But I did have, I don't know if this is way out of the ballpark with regards to this specific question, but something to look at and maybe capitalize on. And I don't know if that's something that we would do in a different forum, is, that the Olympics are going to be hosted, in LA. So that's something that for future we can look at, is, how can we drive people to come visit and spend their tax dollars in the city of Lawndale. So I don't know if that's another one, but also looking to take advantage of that, and maybe looking at, what can we do so that it's easier to commute to Lawndale during that time, and whatnot, or what can we provide, to help alleviate and get people to come to our city, and spend their tax dollars.
And then my concerns are the bottom two photos, where the parking's a big issue, and with the arena numbers the state's implemented to Lawndale, we're going to have granny flats, 2-story, 3 stories. So that, and if you're within a mile, I think it's a mile of a transportation hub, you don't have to build garages, so we're going to have more cars on the street. So those are my two concerns, those two bottom photos.
Mine mirror yours,
that's a real
Pat.
issue.
My concern is the impact it's going to have on our residential streets. We don't have parking the way it is. I don't want to see our residents impacted.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, my concern is the traffic, but I could deal with traffic if we have, the businesses where people could pull over and, grab a bite or, shop in the neighborhood. So if we are gonna work on this type of what we've been discussing, then we need to make sure it's done right, so that we invite these drivers to stop in our city, not just drive by. Parking, it is an issue, but for residential, I think it could be worked out where no parking unless you're a resident in that area. So it could be resolved. It's going to take a little bit more planning, but the parking situation on the residential area could be resolved with certain restrictions. Crime, if it all depends on what type of shops or stores you're putting. And that's all I can say about that. 'Cause, but that would be my concern, traffic and parking, but they could be resolved somehow.
I was just looking to see that you have pawn shops on your list here. I didn't see that on here.
Yeah, actually, in one of the previous community meetings that we had, that was one of it was brought up from one of the residents that they wouldn't like to see those type of uses. I'm gonna go ahead and.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so what type of development do you envision within the Hawthorne specific plan area? Would it be different from the north and south of the 405? So this question is because we do have different type of land uses with zoning within the north portion of the 405, where we have more of a general commercial zone for bigger projects. If you see north of the 405, we have higher high-rise buildings. We don't have a lot of small-scale commercial, versus the south portion of the 405, where we have more of the neighborhood commercial areas. And then going down towards Artesia and Redondo Beach Boulevard, we have also the general commercial again, but it's mostly on the northern portion of the 405. So this question would be, is there a type of development that you envision like to change or within the north portion or the south portion of the Hawthorne Boulevard? And would it be staying the same or would it be different?
That's a good question. I'm going to ask Councilman Cuevas to share some of the remarks on that first.
I personally think we should have it seamless. And if we're looking at doing business and homes, it should be like the north side of Hawthorne Boulevard and continue seamless throughout the city. Right now, you have a dysfunctional
Like a hodgepodge.
kind of city because you have a lot of little businesses south of Hawthorne and not so many on the north side. So seamless, but like north side.
Yeah, but we also want to make sure we don't create a situation where when you drive from the north into the south, it's evident in terms of, new country, old country, So, because I've seen it with communities where you've crossed over to a different neighborhood, right? Just by virtue of something happened, maybe they did community revitalization in a certain section or what have you, and the rest of the community should have been, part of that program or what have you, and it would be obvious that it wasn't, right? So, especially from people that's passing through the community, it's probably more evident than those who even live in the community because you see it every day or what have you, so it's not as pronounced. But so we don't want to make it situations like that where then, have business owners in the south or in the north, and their property values will tend to be higher because we did, some revitalization on the one portion and not the whole. So I take
That's
your
why
point
the
by
whole
making it
seamless,
seamless,
so when
because
you're
you don't want to
driving.
set up that type of dynamics where it just looks like, oh, what happened to this side? Because that happened. But I agree, though.
Any other comments?
I had a quick question. So the bigger buildings, the ones that I'm seeing, I guess they're more of like, seems like office space style. And I don't know that that's less and less, there's more and more people, not really working out of big offices, and it's kind of going more to work at home, remote, or mixed. So, I don't know if that helps any, but I kind of like the smaller shops, just generally speaking, because I think one of the comments on general comments that we get is that like the old town feel, the small town feel. So I think I kind of like that portion of it, of trying not to do so many huge ones, unless you kind of make it like a shared space within. Then I could kind of look at that, but I think, like they said, balance, and then maybe having like buffer zones between the two so that it looks seamless.
Don't forget that we are putting Hawthorne Boulevard with our additional units on there. So you're gonna have to go up to a certain level. So maybe 2 stories or 3-story instead of the 4 or 5 stories.
Well, the neighborhood commercial zone allows for 2 stories or 30 feet, and then the general commercial is 50 feet or 5 stories. But if they do go with the overlay within the Hawthorne plan, they can go up to 150 units per acre, which right now it's 1 per 33. So that's a huge difference there. They might require some sort of variance or something to go higher in order to be able to incorporate those units.
Yeah, Robert, I just see both sides, north and south, uniform, and it's not gonna happen in my lifetime, I know that. I'd like to see mixed use where you have business on the bottom and apartments on top to take care of some of our housing. The 5-story, it's gonna be like a mountain range, we start doing that. We have it right now. I would say all uniform from north to south. There's no more split divide, the freeway. Lawndale is Lawndale, no matter north, south, east, or west. And we'd like to see more mixed use.
Very good.
Mr. Mayor, I was gonna, oh, sorry, Mayor.
Got anything? Go ahead.
I was gonna add to the historical perspective that Ms. Chavez may have glazed over. There's a reason why there's a north and a south. The south was parcelized smaller, and it's adjacent to all the residential neighborhoods at a closer rate. The parcels are very small in the south end of the city. And the north end of the city, north of the 405, those are larger parcels. Families own them that have historically been here for many years, so they're easier to develop with larger developments. So that's the key. All good comments from the council, just keep that in mind that on the south end, that's why we've had a difficult time redeveloping the south end, because the parcelization there are a lot smaller. And so it's hard to develop a nice mixed use down there that meet parking and all the other requirements. Just a heads up on that.
Okay, good point, thank you.
No.
Yes, ma'am.
So besides the selected housing sites, are there any other sites or areas in the city that should be developed? If so, what type of development do you envision? Jobs and economic growth, housing, or both? So this is our housing RENA sites that were picked. Most of them are within the Hawthorne plan, and some of them in the Prairie area. Are there any other areas within the city that should be developed? And what are the type of developments that we're looking for, or we're expecting?
Outside of Hawthorne.
How about, do we have any areas on Rosecrans? Because that street is also very, there's a lot of people driving west-east or east-west, doing a mixed use in that area on both sides of Rosecrans. Because we have a lot of auto shops.
Right.
So maybe, making those multi-use.
Any other comments?
This wouldn't, I don't think it would fall in that category, but is it also, is it a different category to talk about not only that, but like beautification as part of the process for some of those main streets? Because I feel like if you put plant life or something like that, it starts, I don't know, it just looks visually more appealing, and I don't know if that's something that
that would be part of putting those goals and objectives as part of the general plans.
Okay, because some of them, for example, like, Marine's one of those streets that it just kind of looks a little worn. Rosecrans too, I don't know if there's much you could, but something to implement beautification on those, because they look a little worn.
I'm going to go ahead and move on. If I don't have any other comments.
No, we're good.
No,
Go ahead.
Thank you. So how flexible should the city be in allowing underutilized residential, commercial, and industrial properties to transition to other uses over time? So, for example, there's a old auto sales car place, or to transition into mixed use, for example. How flexible should we be in the regulations, et cetera?
I personally think we should work with whoever's coming in and have them present the plans, and if it's something that we decide that will look good, rather than have a beat up car dealership or whatever, then we should work with them within the decisions that we make.
And then to add off of that, if we have a category of preferred, for example, we mentioned restaurants, we mentioned entertainment, we mentioned, those things. If someone comes with a proposal for specifically what we're looking for, perhaps creating some kind of a fast track or some kind of plan for those specific uses that we want. And then everybody kind of wins in that regard.
And I like that picture on the left. That looks really nice. Something like that would look nice on
So this is like a
Rosecrans.
mixed-use development with a incorporated area for recreation or for gathering of the public, which is what our planning commission kind of mentioned to us in the previous meeting.
Do we have any lots big enough that could be turned into that?
I'm sure there are a few out there that could
Probably
be.
on the north side of
The north
Lawndale.
side, yes.
Yeah, I would say, I was gonna add, kind of you hit on this point that from time to time, we talk about some of the buildings that been, we got a lot of vacant buildings, you know, on Hawthorne Boulevard. And a lot of that has to do with, at least in some part, because some of those buildings used to be for furniture sales and things of that nature, and they didn't require as much parking. Like showrooms and stuff like that doesn't require as much parking. And so now you find, well, some building owners have these vacancies because now they're not really having the tenants, you know, for furniture stores and things of that nature or what have you. So I think it would be in our best interest to be flexible so that the landowner can at least entertain repurposing their property, because right now it's like, unless a furniture store is going to come there, you know, it's like you have the zoning, and so obviously the zoning controls the land use, but in this case, if you're a building owner, you got to wait for a tenant that's going to be appropriate for the zoning, as opposed to if you got some other uses out there that you can have a tenant and that can be useful in the community. You kind of held hostage from the zoning because I don't know if the furniture stores are outdated or what have you. I don't know if there's any new furniture stores coming online or what have you, because I don't, really buy furniture like that. But I see that that's one of the reasons. Actually, I've been told that by one of the building owners that that's one of the impediments of getting new tenants is that it's zoned for the uses that didn't require as much parking, such as showrooms or what have you. So that's something that we can take a look at in that flexibility, issue.
Talking about parking, Hawthorne Boulevard has the medium and where you could park. Would it be possible to the sidewalk side, instead of parking parallel to the sidewalk, putting them, I don't know,
Diagonal?
diagonal? That will probably create a little bit more parking space or parking for businesses. So maybe we could look and see what the damage would be. Do we lose a lane, or do we make the sidewalks a little bit smaller so that we could create those spaces?
So there was a time that we had talked about having diagonal on parking, and the notion was to not only have the diagonal parking, but to allow people to use that wide walkway that we have on Hawthorne Boulevard, which is huge. If you never walked Hawthorne Boulevard, it's enough space, for, to have outside dining and stuff like that. So we're supposed to be creating an atmosphere where we would encourage outside dining and walking, and then having the parking diagonal like that, I guess where people would be more apt to, park there and then go in, rather than if they have to park in the medium and then go into the dining or what have you. So that's something I don't recall what happened to that ideal, but that was something that we was looking at some time ago, but I haven't seen anything.
I think when we did the Hawthorne Boulevard remodel, it was on the plans there. I think Rhonda has more information because Harold was there. And diagonal parking was supposed to be on there.
Yeah.
And somehow or other, it decided, or somebody decided, maybe it was cost saving that we do the regular parking, but it was on the original refurbishment of Hawthorne Boulevard.
It also attracts more people because you're making more parking spaces. Because if I have to drive 2-3 times up and down Hawthorne to find a parking space, I probably keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any
But it does cause a bottleneck. If you go to Hawthorne and see they're parked down there by the police station and the library, when they come out onto Hawthorne Boulevard, there's a bottleneck, and there's been several accidents, people coming out of the diagonal parking onto Hawthorne because people just don't care no more about how they drive. I mean, so we have to look at that too.
Oh, yeah, like when they back out?
When they back out,
Is that
and
what
then
you're talking about?
when you come back into Hawthorne Boulevard off that, the diagonal parking,
But now most cars have the little camera that beeps every time you try to back out. So, you know, we should be smart about that.
Okay. My cars don't beep.
no.
Mine beeps
I
every
pedal
time a
mine.
car goes by.
I gotta
so.
get an update car.
You do.
Very good. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So that was the last question, actually. If you wanted to add something. Before I do that, let me just let you know that we're gonna have a community workshop. It's gonna be an interactive workshop on August 31st at the community center on the, I believe the 3rd floor. So we're gonna have that at 6:30 p.m., August 31st. So we invite the public to join. And we resubmitted the housing element to HCD on August 12th, so we're gonna have a 60-day review period. Then once, hopefully, once the 60 days are over, they can tell us that it's been certified. And if we do, then we're gonna have an additional 3 years to do a rezoning. If we don't, then we'd have to get it done by October 15th, but we're hoping that we basically met all the points that they require from us. And the draft general plan is projected to be ready for January 2023, and our Hawthorne plan draft projected for April 2023, and our general plan updated adoption is projected to October 2023. And
So how long does it usually take the housing and community development to respond to our housing elements?
60 days, 60-day comment period.
Well, there's a 60-day comment period. Does that include the approval, or after the comment period, then you wait for 6 more months for approval?
So they get our resubmittal, and they have 60 days to review it. So then, after those 60 days, they give us either comments back or they certify it.
Okay, so the comments from them.
Mhm.
Okay, got it.
So we're just waiting for comment, or
Yeah,
the
for their,
approval, basically.
for their response, yes.
For their
Approval, okay.
Mhm.
Because that was on, one of my questions is, what are we waiting for, you know? It's like it's been forever, so it shouldn't
Right.
take,
We've
that long.
resubmitted it after the council approved it, and then we received comments again. After it was 60 days, then we received comments, and we worked on those comments and try to make sure that everything was tied together before we submitted this next time, so that we can meet the October 15th deadline, and that way we can have an extension for the rezoning.
okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, don't forget the HCD has been recently empowered, and they're very aggressive now on reviewing these housing elements. All cities and counties are being held up.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or thoughts about the general plan that you would like to add at this time?
Just no
I
more
don't
pawn
see any.
shops, or auto shops, or car washes, dentals. Cemeteries? So, well, if that's what you want, that's what.
We can do
No,
cemetery.
they have one, they have that Neptune Society thing, that's good enough.
Okay, is there anyone wishing to make any public comments on this item?
Okay, Mr.
You can do so at this time, yes, sir. We'll get you next, Juan Carlos. Go ahead.
It would be helpful if the handouts were in color. It's hard to distinguish on the uses with different shades of gray. And I noticed on the site-specific plan, there's several numbers such as 37, 38, and 39 that are outside for the housing elements. which are a darker color, suggesting that's suitable for moderate/above moderate income levels. And this would solve a whole great amount of problems if RJs disappeared and we had multifamily housing there.
Thank you for those comments, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, sorry for intervening in this, but I think that, all your ideas are great. About the restaurants and stuff like that, but you should be looking at, that place, La Americana. That area there has completely dramatically changed. They turned it into a dining area in the bottom part, and the buildings on top of it, they turn them into apartments, and I think that will attract a lot of the young people in the, how do you call this, in the electronic things, and engineers that are here. Because I've been seeing, walking by my house, a lot of young guys that are engineers, just say, oh no, we just live here because it's close to SpaceX or whatever. So if you create something that will be attractive, but not just, La Americana, I think it might be just 5 stories tall. And another thing that you could do to solve that problem with the parking is get someone to build underground parking. And that way it has a less of an effect on the other things that you guys are worried about. But I think traffic is just nonstop now. Everybody wants to drive. So, but think of something that like Americana. I think is because I usually take my parents. I go all the way to Glendale just so they could see Christmas, spend time, and families go there because there's a lot of water fountains and things. It's just relaxing, and there are little shops like you guys say, but it's very attractive. And like I say, I agree with you with Maureen and Rosecrans. Thank you guys.
Very good, thank you. Okay. So now that you've made this presentation, what is your ask of the council?
Receive and file.
You want me to receive and file it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the staff recommends that the city council receive and file the general plan workshop.
Okay, is there any?
What if we say no?
Well, then it still was received.
still
It's still going to be
received, right?
filed somewhere, right? Right, so we can do that with unanimous consent without any objections, right?
Yes.
Without any objections, we will receive and file your report on the why does it say 2020 general plan? That was my question.
So, Mr. Mayor, the 2020, that's when we started our general plan update, but because of the COVID pandemic and us not being able to do too many of the public outreach, it got delayed. So, which should have really been adopted 2022, because it takes about 2 years to process. However, we were a little bit delayed because of the pandemic.
Okay, very good. With that, we will receive and file the 2020 general plan and Hawthorne Boulevard specific plan update workshop. Okay, thank you for that presentation. Let's see here. Item 8, Lawndale Coyote Management Plan. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to all the distinguished members of the City Council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you tonight regarding the staff report. A few weeks ago, the council requested that staff prepare a plan for dealing with coyotes in Lawndale. I'm happy to report that staff has assembled a coyote management plan that, with your approval, can be implemented right away. The Lawndale Coyote Management Plan lays out the specific protocols and practices that the Municipal Services Department staff currently use when dealing with coyotes that are observed in Lawndale, and also includes new methods which staff will begin to incorporate into our regular procedures when we encounter coyotes. This new plan relies on messaging and education and seeks to inform our residents and the general public with facts about living in close proximity to coyotes, and also seeks to educate residents about how they can play a role in limiting the presence of coyotes in their own neighborhoods. Once this plan is accepted, it will be posted on the city website, as will regular updates with information about sightings in the city, information on how residents can reduce the attractiveness of Lawndale to coyotes by limiting food and water sources, and all other information about coyotes that will help residents to limit the presence of coyotes in Lawndale. Hazing or fear conditioning is also referenced in this plan as a method to make coyotes skittish and fearful of humans, which in turn will make them less likely to be active in Lawndale. Hazing methods are discussed at length in this plan, and none of the hazing practices are designed to harm coyotes. Lastly, this plan does not include any reference to trapping coyotes, as trapped coyotes are euthanized, and the city does not want to make that a part of our established protocols. Staff hopes that the City Council will adopt this plan, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have about this plan.
Okay, thank you for that report. Is there any questions on the coyote, on the coyote report?
It's a great plan. Oh, good.
It's a great plan.
Well, some questions follow up, because I did look at a couple other cities' plans, and actually Manhattan Beach is looking at theirs tomorrow. But so I did read through their report, and they included, which I think is something of interest, because I keep seeing particularly cats. When I see reports on Nextdoor or whatnot, people report cats. Part of their plan specifically mentioned that feral cats are something that the coyotes attack. So I'm not quite sure what research they did. They did include their studies and whatnot, but that seemed to be, they reported, and I know part of the conditioning is, certain behavior, so maybe they're attacking pet cats, because, I don't know, it's a cat in general. I don't know if you have any other info on that, because they actually included as part of their report what areas have feral cats gathered, and also looking at just that component they kind of included as part of their plan as well, was trying to not keep track of the populations of feral cats.
Our plan doesn't mention that, but that does sound like a reasonable thing to include. I could certainly put that in. I can research Manhattan Beach.
Yeah, just take their
well, I'm not familiar with it, but I can certainly research that and implement that, include that as well, if the council wishes. Coyotes, they are very opportunistic in terms of their diets, so cats wouldn't necessarily be part of their diets initially, but over time, a feral cat or a stray cat would be something that they would find appetizing and is an easy kill for a coyote. Small dogs are also often caught by coyotes. But coyotes can eat lizards, they'll eat snakes, they'll eat rodents. They also eat fruits and vegetables, so they have a very vast diet. Sadly, cats are often part of that. So, but I can certainly research that.
And that leads into my next question is, I don't know if we know, because I've seen coworkers and whatnot, they'll show pictures of their little dogs, and they have some kind of an outfit with spikes on it, and they're calling it like a coyote. I don't even know. Are those legal, or?
Yeah,
I mean, if the coyote attacks,
I have seen those protective outfits with spikes. I don't know how it'd be like a basic little suit of armor for your pet dog,
basically,
or cat. Okay. Again, a coyote could still, I'm sure, kill an animal wearing one of those things. I don't know how comfortable it would be for your dog to walk around in that. There's a lot of things. There's also practical things that people can do. There's fencing that has roll-top fencing, so as coyotes try to pounce on walls, they slide off, so they can't. So they'll stay away from those houses. Spiked fencing that are also coyote ailments. There's a lot of things out there that are designed to keep coyotes away. Some are not so well tested. Certain types of animal urine is actually available for sale because it's supposed to be a repellent for coyotes. Bear urine and other things like that is actually, if you want to buy that and spray it around your house, I don't know how practical it is. But there are things like that are coyote repellents, but scientifically they're not completely tested, or research is still out on whether or not those are effective.
And then one last point is more of a recommendation. I was looking at Rancho PV's plan, and they had an Appendix B where they put a chart, which I can send to you, and it looks, I think it would be helpful because it talks about it has 3 columns: coyote action, classification, city and or resident response. I think a lot of times when people want to know, like, it's kind of like a little cheat sheet, like, okay, if you see one, this is the appropriate response. If one attacks, here's the appropriate response. And I think it might just kind of be, kind of a go-to where you look at that, because I'm sure the question is, hey, I've seen one, what do I do next? Type of thing. So I can email that to you if you'd like.
I'm familiar with Rancho Palos Verdes Coyote Plan, and I am familiar with that appendix. We could include something like that as well. And anything that council wants to see, we can certainly add.
That's it for me.
My question is, I like what you put together. Thank you very much. What is the state doing about this? Are they catching them and neutering them, or what are they doing?
No,
Or are they just letting them?
They're just the state's policy on wildlife, like all wildlife, is that it needs to be left alone. My officers are not allowed to trap any kind of wildlife unless it's injured. Occasionally, we will get injured hawks, injured owls, things like that, and as our wildlife, we will take them to be treated, but they're basically put down. They're not rescued. Some animals are. If we can find a rescue for a certain animal, and it's able to be saved, we can take it to a rescue. I'm not aware of any coyote rescues, but the state basically
They just
let them be.
Keep
basically.
Growing and
Yeah,
overpopulating the city.
Yeah, and likely the coyotes that we have in town were probably born here, just like the coyotes in other cities were probably born there, and that's where they, just over time, coyotes have adapted to living in urban environments, even heavy urban environments like Los Angeles, and then where there's paved streets and concrete and almost no vegetation, they're still finding habitats there and living in backyards and things like that. So they're very adaptable, and that's, the state is basically just saying, you know, we're going to let them be.
Have we seen the one that was hurt?
We haven't seen him since that day we
Since
chased
that
it.
day.
Yeah. So but I'm not aware of it being killed or destroyed. So I imagine it's still around, but we haven't seen it.
Very good report. Thank you for this report. I guess I kind of learned something on page 17. I didn't know that in some instances, residents could trap coyotes. Didn't
Yeah,
know that was allowed.
anyone who feels threatened by a coyote can go ahead, and that is something that the law does allow. It is a fairly expensive process, though. Only licensed coyote trappers are allowed to do that. It is about $1,000 per coyote. So I don't know if an individual would want to pay that money out of their own pocket if the coyotes, unless it's frequenting their property.
So when we say, okay, so when we say residents have the ability to initiate at their own expense trapping and removal, meaning that they can't affect the trapping and removal themselves, but they can hire.
They can hire somebody.
someone.
Only a licensed trapper can do that. And I think the law is more designed for rural areas and ranch owners and things like that, where they have livestock that are jeopardized and they have multiple coyotes, and it's in their best interest, not necessarily for urban centers like ourselves.
Okay, very good, very good. Does anyone wants to make any comments on this item? Now, come on up, Mr. Adams. I saw you doing this.
Oh, having fun. I don't know whether it's still the current situation, but several years ago, I was taking some courses at El Camino Junior College.
Uh-huh.
They have a huge feral cat population. They actually have feeding stations all over the campus for them. My point being that may be considered an attractive nuisance, because if the coyotes go after these cats, and there's a huge population there like there was when I was there, then that may be a factor in that you want to look at.
Very good, thank you, sir. Okay. So let me look at this. Let me guess you're asking us to file in the receipt. Yeah, first.
No, I think we have to approve it.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say.
Right, I thought you had a question first. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm in favor.
You can make a
of-
motion.
Okay, making the motion, but can we add that appendix?
Sure.
Similar to the other plan, if no one else has any problem with it.
No problem.
I'll second that with the appendix
of course.
attached.
Okay, so the motion's been made by Suarez that we approve the plan with the appendix attached, and seconded by Cuevas. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, will the council please vote on the Coyote Management Plan motion?
For item number 8, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, madam.
Mr. Mayor, I know we voted on this, But is it possible to have it in a couple of languages, your Coyote management plan?
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure that's no problem. Or do we know which languages we're?
Sorry, we already voted on it, but.
Well, that's outside the motion anyway, so you can still talk
Okay.
about it.
Yeah.
I
Has no
believe it would be
effect
no
on the
problem
motion.
to.
Can we see if there's a cost behind it, and if there is, can you let us know?
And we probably can't do it at this meeting. We can-
No,
we can-
for
we can do it at
follow-up.
another meeting, because that's an action.
We can put it in Spanish, of course. Outside of that, we'd have to pay for services or find someone to, any other language outside of that. We have staff on, that are earn extra pay for Spanish translation. We can do that for the plan. If there's additional, we have to look and hire someone outside.
Could we see if there's another demographic that is high in our community, that's, that we have a lot of citizens? And if we could get a cost of how much it would cost so that they are also informed?
Yes, we could do
Yeah.
that. We could look at that. Yep.
Thank you.
If we did, it would be Vietnamese, but we'll look into it.
Well,
All right.
you never know.
Okay, with that, let's move to the next item. With item 9, condition of drainage channel at Rogers Anderson Park.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This item, per the direction of the council, we researched this, Public Works looked into this matter. It's concerning the properties that are adjacent to Roger Anderson Park, located in the southeast side of the city. We had some resident or two come in and talk to Public Works, as well as the Lawndale Elementary School District. Currently, under our current agreement with the Lawndale Elementary School District, we do share facilities with the school district for activities and other things related to recreation. Adjacent to this, we've gotten information and notification from one property owner that has already it's here today. And staff looked into what the cost would be to build different mitigations for the property. On the east side of the property, there's a flooding issue, historic flooding issue, not something that was, remember, just as I mentioned, that this is school district property. The city has used this property for years for recreational purposes. And staff went out and reviewed the area and looked at it. And it turns out 2 of the properties, including the gentleman's property that we're talking about tonight, sits 8 inches lower than the school district property. So that's why you have the flooding issues. But the school district, along with the school, many years back, as attached to the staff report, they built a drainage canal. And it's there as attachment 1. And then also for attachment 2, you can see the backyard of the property in question, 15521 on Prairie Avenue. That's impacted by flooding. This is a historical problem. Engineering looked at this. There's many properties along there. So if the council chose to, they could look at various options we provided to the council to pick from. What staff looked at, they discovered that the canal is not really maintained. It is school district property, but under that agreement, we have to do some maintenance. It's not clear rehabilitation, maintenance of the drainage, but either way, what staff observed was overgrown vegetation. They noticed that it's not being cleaned out. We had staff go, we had Mariposa, the new landscaping firm, go out there and look at it, and there's landscaping overhanging from the properties. There's stuff in there, and there's other impediments in the drainage canal. After careful examination of the situation, staff had several recommendations, and I'll go over them. First, the primary recommendation from Public Works staff was that Public Works include additional landscape maintenance to funding to clean out the flushing and existing debris and the obstructions in the channel, which they believe may be the cause, and provide consistent maintenance of the area to prevent this from happening in the future. Or 2, prove the construction of retaining wall and the amount of $5,000 per parcel. There's roughly 2 that engineering found, so that'd be $10,000, but it's a total of 4, potentially even more, at $5,000 a pop to repair the walls, to do retaining walls to help mitigate the flooding. Now, keep in mind that once you do that, then and legally, I don't want to, go step over Greg's area, but that could put us potential liability for the city, because once you do that, you'll be attenuating that, not an engineer, but that water flow will go to the next easiest route. So if we don't build the whole area along there as potential new retaining walls for the whole area, it's a long area, could be a lot more money than that. and then approve and remove the replacement existing drain, and look at improving the flow, and that's at a cost of $40,000. Now, staff did not budget, we did not budget for this. This was unanticipated. Staff is recommending item 1 as a potential. Of course, we allow the council to make the decision. We have a plethora of possible actions on that property. This concludes staff's report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Okay, thank you for the report.
I do like item number 1. You're going to take care of the vegetation first, right? At our cost, or the residents have the overflow?
Well, we'd work with the residents that have any overflow. We can trim on that side. We have Mariposa that's already supposed to maintain the school property, so that's part of their contract. So we just have them go in there and clean it all out. They were already out there looking at it. We can have them just clean it up, trim all the bushes, and keep it free and debris free. We're not sure that that's the actual problem. You'd have to have engineering reports, water, soil samples. You'd have to have simulations to determine the exact cause. What the engineering proposals we got were $5,000 rebuild retaining walls for each low property, which would be $10,000 total for the 2. But as I mentioned, that water could end up going further down and further down. Then we could be potentially a liability. I'll defer that to Greg, but liability by doing that, because then we have now moved that water on and that problem onto the next property potentially. Or we can look at approving the channel. Now, that's another issue because it's not our property. So these are some of the things that I wanted to, it's up for the council to consider. Staff's recommending item 1.
Okay, then you're going to purge the drain, correct? You
We
rotor-rooter it?
Yes, we would clean the drain, clean it out. They were gonna run a water truck over it, just see what it does. They call it the water bowl, I think, the engineering's not here, but they call it the water bowl, where they go out and they just run water through it and just test it and see what it does. But it's actually an old drainage canal, and there is historical issues there, because unfortunately, the gentleman's property and the neighbors, they sit 8 inches lower.
I have a question regarding the retaining walls, because you're saying 4 that we need to do, and then potentially more. Do we have a figure of how many it could possibly impact, like the highest number it could impact?
Engineering said 4 the most, so 5,000 each. The 2 that are most impactful are the 2 properties adjacent, the property owner that's here tonight, and then adjacent, his neighbor, that's $10,000.
But you said on top of that, it could eventually go, and affect other properties.
Yes.
So at that point, what other properties, how many could it impact?
Well, I have is 4 now, but it could be possibly more along that, water flows, once it starts flowing, it could impact all those properties on that side of the eastern boundary line. It could be up to more than 20. Potentially, we have 4 identified that the engineering looked at.
Are we able to do a report where it tells us if we build the wall on the entire area, how much it'll cost?
Yeah, it's called a hydrology report, and we have to pay money and an engineer to do that.
No. And then, if you do this drain, it drains out to one of the side streets off of Banana Beach, correct?
I believe so, yeah. We'd have to clean all of that area.
Problems over there, too, because that sits a good foot below this drain.
Yeah, again, this is a historical thing, that the way the property was designed.
Probably, if I'm guessing, 25 homes. You're talking about most of Inglewood Prairie.
Before Julian's departure, he did say he did not recommend, and the engineer did not recommend doing the retaining walls at this time. Of course, we left that in there because of council's request. But as of right now, there's 2 that we've identified that are lower. But it could be potentially more and more issues, because water sheet flows and you just don't know, you can't control for it. The only way to properly do this would be to hire do a hydraulic study.
If we can't do the wall, I would do number 3. I know it's not in the budget, but it'll solve the potential of the cleaning of the debris,
I disagree with you. 1 should be the first step. Clean the bushes, the weeds, and then see if we can purge that drain and see what happens with the water. After that, we go either 2 or 3. But why spend the money if we don't need to right now, if we do number 1?
I have a question, because my concern is that we do the first part, and then, months later, okay, that doesn't fix it, we're back to square one again, and then it gets into winter, and the residents that get impacted have to deal with it, and everything in local government tends to take a little bit longer because of the processes. And so I'm okay with budgeting for it. If that doesn't happen, that way we don't have to come back for another discussion. I say, you try and see if that works, but I'm honestly okay with jumping to that point because it seems like he's been dealing with this for years and years, and just don't want to prolong it any more than we have to. Because I don't, if it's been historically an issue, I think it's going to continue to be an issue unless we do some kind of update. Those are my comments.
Thank you for those comments.
And I have one more. Are we splitting the cost with the school district?
That was going to be my.
So as the council knows, we're in strong, robust negotiations with Lawndale Elementary. Before Ms. Hamilton's departure, I mentioned this $5 to $7 million that we need cost sharing on, and the comments back to, well, they'll look at it and get back to me. But it was quite a big amount, and they mentioned they're looking at potential cost sharing, but the signals I got, they were pretty astonished at the amount of monies that we were requesting for cost sharing. So that goes to my other point is in the current agreements, any improvements we do, we leave to the school district, or we remove them in 90 days in the current contracts. So we don't, including the park equipment, whatever, and that would include these walls. This is not our property. That was the other thing. This is school district property. So we'd be improving this property for the school district. But it's totally up to the council.
And also, this is what I would consider a capital expense, capital improvement, as opposed to what we're looking for, the cost sharing, that's mostly for like maintenance, the park and things of that nature, not necessarily to do, capital improvements.
Right.
I didn't envision us doing capital improvements on the schools on property, but just, to make sure that it's maintained, whether it's well watered and seeded, things of that nature, and maintained so that it's a safe environment to play, soccer, football, what have you, but not doing capital improvements. Now if we did something like, we damaged, some property, let's say the water sprinklers, yes, we pay for the water sprinklers, things of that nature. I consider that part of the maintenance upkeep. But this is more of a capital improvement, issue that the school district should be in charge of. Now, I don't have any problem necessarily partnering with the school district in terms of paying for it if we go with item 3, which I do believe it does sound like it's a drain channel issue. But it's hard for me to just pay 100% when it's school property, 1, and then 2, it's a capital improvement. It's not maintenance. It has nothing to do with the usage per se of, of the park.
That's right.
All those who want to use the park can use the park whether this existed or not, or whether this was a problem or not. And that's what our agreement is, so that we can use the park for community programs. So we definitely need to have a conversation with the school district before we spend $40,000 on it to improve their property.
But who was supposed to maintain that area? Was it the city or the school district?
So the agreement says maintain, rehabilitate, and maintain the sites. That's what it's issue when we discuss with the school district. I mean, that's what's not
So
clear.
we never maintained that area?
No, we have maintained the infrastructure, the grass and the breaking of the sprinklers and other areas on the site, but where we're negotiating with them now is on all these capital improvements that are needed. The infrastructure is failing on all 3 of the school sites.
Because that doesn't seem like, a maintenance issue to me. If you have, because you inherently designed this inadequate, right? To me, that was a design problem, from the start. It didn't develop like that, right? It was a design problem from the start. So that's why I don't see how that's the responsibility.
I get what you're saying, but from the pictures that were being shown, the drainage is backed up from debris and trees and whatever that are coming over to the school. If we're supposed to maintain it, that should be cleared out and the water should be flowing.
I agree.
So, which means our previous maintenance company wasn't maintaining that area.
But if, I guess that's why I think the city manager, they're saying, once you get that cleaned out, right, and then you run that water through there, then the issue is, do you still have the same problem, even though it's cleaned out, right?
That's why we recommend number one first.
Yeah, if it's not leveled correctly, then you're still gonna have the same problem. Matter of fact, you probably have even more of a problem because it's a free-flowing, water. So yes, I do agree that they should be maintaining it and should clean it, but you still, it seems like to me, if you have a drainage problem, you still have a drainage problem, if it's not because of the debris.
But it still needs to be cleared out and fixed so that it doesn't go over to the neighbor's house.
I agree.
Because the debris that's been there probably 6, 7 years, however long, it's decaying the pipes, decaying the cement, it's causing all these problems. They didn't have this issue when they installed it, which means it was working. It's just by us not maintaining it, it's starting to decay. I don't know if I'm
No, I understand.
if you don't fix something from the get-go.
That could be true. I'm not sure, but that could be true that it's not just the draining, it's starting to decay because the weeds and all the vegetation haven't been cleaned out over the years.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if that's true or not because I don't know what kind of pipes and what kind of drainage system it's made out of or what have you, but it might be true. Then that would be a point then if that's the case.
I do have some further comments, or I guess kind of what I'm feeling, because it sounds to me like the agreement doesn't quite specifically specify whose responsibility down to the T. It sounds very much, city and school district are in unison, and everything's, and I think now we're coming to the point where, buildings are older, you're needing the maintenance, and so now this is coming up. However, and so to that point, I just don't want it to be something where it comes to where we're arguing back and forth with the school district and then this gets put on hold. I think what we need to do is we know this remains, per the agreement that we have with the school district, it's not completely clear, whose responsibility. I think we go forward with this and then for further conversations, talk about, look, we're going to be facing all of these buildings going forward, deterioration, needing upgrades, and so at that point we, say, hey, we did this one, but, going forward, can we work on talk about what we want to see in future agreements? And then the other thing is, a quick question off the top of my head, because I was of the understanding that this is how a lot of cities function, where they upkeep the parks and whatnot for school districts and whatnot. I mean, I'll give you an example. I know, like, for example, crossing guards is something that normally cities do pay for, not school districts. So, and that's what my understanding was with the parks and whatnot.
Looking at the agreements, when they were signed, they were more favorable, I guess, to the Lawndale element, not put them on the spot, but they were more favorable to the elementary school district and less favorable to us. So the language basically was a catch-all, kind of generalized language. It's put us, in this, we're supposed to maintain, and the big question that I mentioned to before Ms. Hamilton left, the former superintendent, was it says maintain, doesn't say rebuild or reconstruct. And we're talking about fences and landscaping and new roads onto the sites, parking areas, asphalt, cracking sidewalks. Recently, the removal of the tree, the big tree with the bee in it, the big tape palm that we had to remove. So some of those things came up. So you're all right. The way it is written, it's written in more favor of the Lawndale Elementary School District. But, at the same time, like council's pointed out, it hadn't been maintained. So that's why for the first step in this process, staff had recommended cleaning it up and maintaining it and then checking it and running the water. It's called the water bowl, I believe they call it, Public Works, and running it and see what it does, running water over it to test it.
And to my second point, though, isn't that usually the way that most cities and school districts function? that the cities maintain the parks and whatnot, or is it just we're the only ones that do that?
I haven't checked around with other school joint park sites. You know, I've worked with other community service districts where the school and where the city and the community's recreation district work together on joint parks and whatnot. Not schools I haven't looked at generally, but I understand that that's typically where the schools do work together with the city to maintain the site. It just depends on the agreement. But the agreements we currently have now, they're more in favor and inclined for the maintenance and all these costs. And that's why we've been paying it. Periodically, you've seen over the last few years, we've had issues on several of the parks. Recently at Green, we've gotten complaints from parents about the entryway into the Green. It's all rutted out, and it needs to be rebuilt, pulled out and rebuilt that whole area in there, that whole park. So there's a lot of infrastructure that's just old and deferred and just hasn't been done. Both school and the school district and the city.
Yes, ma'am.
My thought is, right off the bat, we need to do number one and clean this thing up immediately. We need to have a conversation with the school district to find out if it's even a possibility that they would be willing to assist us even with this project. I don't think that we do this project and then say, well, on any further ones. I think this is the reason why we sit down and get that clarified. We can't leave the residents continuing to have this problem. So we need to have that answer and with the school district as soon as possible on whether or not they're going to share the expense with us or not. But I think right off the bat, we need to flush out that drain, get the weeds all pulled out of it and clean it up and let's get that thing, let it prove to us that it's failing. That's the first step. And number two, then let's go further with the school district.
Is there a timeline for the drain to be cleaned out or driven over?
We met with Mariposa last week so they could get it done as soon as possible, since we got a direction from the council.
Okay.
And then they'd bring the water bill over there and run water, high pressure water, and see what it does.
I have a question. Do we lease the parks, or are we paying the school district any monetary funds for the parks?
We lease in some kind of agreement. I don't think we pay them $1.
Okay,
I'd have to double check, but I'm not sure. It's like $1. It's nothing really. Well, honestly,
$1.
If it's $1, that's not much. But,
Okay,
yeah.
so since we're not paying for the parks, then why can't we repair something? Because the way I see it is, we're not paying them. So if we pay them, we could go to them and say, well, we're giving you this much money. You guys need to make the repairs, but we're not paying the school district for the parks.
It's because it's a capital improvement.
Well,
When we start talking about a capital improvement, I think that's what changes.
but there's nothing in the current agreement that says that they'll take care of capital improvements.
It
Am
does
I
not.
correct?
It's very general.
So we need to deal with this now to help the neighbors. So I'm okay with doing number one and keeping number three as the backup and not having you guys bring it back to us for approval.
And I feel the same way.
So that way, it's seamless, basically. It didn't work, okay, you guys are approved for no more to an amount of $40,000, not to exceed that. But work it out with the school district, and if they say no, well, we're not. The way I see it is, I'm not paying rent, so the least we could do is make the repair.
I agree with you that ultimately the repair needs to happen if number one doesn't. But I before spending the dollars, I would like it to come back to this body so that we know what the answer is from the school district.
I already know what the answer is
I
going
have to agree. I agree with Rhonda. I do.
You already know the answer.
Yeah. We all know the answer. So is that your motion, Rhonda?
But it does need to be fixed. I
Yeah.
100% agree with you. It needs to be taken care of.
I mean, it would be different, the way I see it is if I have my apartment and I'm paying Robert rent, I expect Robert to fix it. You know, we're not paying rent, so we're technically, you know, kind of.
We are paying
getting
rent,
the-
we're paying $1. And
Okay,
that's
we're paying
considered, that's
$1.
considered rent. And before you do a capital project, we should bring it back to this council for our vote.
Quick question. You mentioned Mayor Post has already been told to clean it?
Because it's part of, you know, the park right here, on this area, right on the edge. They maintain all the landscaping in that area. So
Not
we-
the drain, just the
Well,
landscape.
it's, you know, it's all part of the property,
So
so
you
we
told them,
asked.
so
I
you
guess-
told them to already start?
No, not
Oh,
yet.
oh,
but
okay.
We're waiting for direction. Once we get direction from the council, then we can proceed on moving forward. But they went and looked at it and, you know, looked at the overgrowth and as a potential issue.
And one more question. When are we sitting down with the new superintendent to discuss the new contract? Because it's almost up to,
I already have been. I've been meeting with Ms. Hamilton, and then I met with Ms. Castro, was out front here the other week.
well, but are you guys sitting down and discussing it?
Yeah.
Or is it
Yes, we're
an email
meeting.
going back and forth?
Well, she just started
Yeah.
last week,
Yeah.
and she said that she was, her first day, her second day, she said she'd get back to me, and I resent the email over to her staff. And then Diane's setting up the next scheduled meeting with them. But we are in the 60-day, I went ahead and extended it, even though our agreement says 60 days, but since she just started, I've given her time to, you know, fill out her job and then sit down with her again. Because, you know, we have a little bit more time, it's, I think, next year, so we have time to finish up the negotiations and bring it back with a recommendation. I'm supposed to give you guys a recommendation, get their feel, what they're willing to come up with, and make my recommendation to the council.
Can you make sure that capital expense is in there? That they're
Yeah, I think
responsible for that?
council requested an email, and I sent it all to the council,
Yeah.
what the costs are, what we sent over to them. I think it was a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week. I think it's like 5 to 7 million or something
Yeah.
for the infrastructure. That Julian did a big estimate rough estimate for the school district.
And it's gonna be 50/50 or 100% of the school district?
We asked for sharing,
Okay,
so I try not to get too greedy with them, because they're a school
okay.
district.
Robert, can I ask one question of
Yes.
Mr. Juan Carlos? If this was happening for 40 years, why are we just hearing it now? Or did you bring it to the school board, or,
I've been bringing it to their department, but they always blow us off.
okay.
But they've been blowing me off, so, I mean, like I said, I just came here because, you know, I'm fed up with the whole thing. I mean, I'm done. I'm really done. And I pay taxes for this property. So, that is my concern. So what am I paying taxes for?
Sorry, one last point too, is the longer that you take to do the repairs and we still get footed the bill, the more expensive it becomes too, so.
I don't think we have to put it off, but I would like the question answered, and I would like it to come back to the body first here. Well, and that could be what, 2 weeks?
Or sooner, yeah, 2 weeks of next meeting, yeah.
Yeah. 3 weeks?
Is that a motion?
I can make it a motion.
If we felt we've had enough discussion on it. Felt we had enough discussion.
So that was a motion, I'm taking it.
Do I need to word it as a? What do you want to do?
I have no idea, I'm lost. There we
I
go.
move that we go with option number 1, with having it cleaned out immediately, and then speaking with the school district about the cost, and ultimately keep in the back of our mind number 3. But that before number 3 occurs, I would like for it to come back to this body so that we know what the answer is from the school district.
And
Yes,
I would
under-
just, sorry,
Under-
my
under
vote is
discussion.
gonna reflect no, just because I think it needs to be number 3 right away.
Mine is gonna be a no vote.
Okay, okay, so we're under discussion on the motion. First of all, the motion's been made by,
Okay.
I'll second it.
Second. So we got a first and second on the motion. On the discussion, I think it only makes sense to one, to look at the flushing it out to see if the problem is simply the debris and the obstruction of the channel. Because you can't just jump to 3 and without at least doing one
Well,
first.
I would like to see number 1, but then number 3, allowing staff to do the work up to $40,000 if the
Budgeting for it.
flushing doesn't happen. So that it's, okay, it didn't work, we are authorized to use up to $40,000 to fix the problem.
I see, take your point.
Instead of bringing it back, we're allotting $40,000 for the repair. If the school district says, okay, let's work it out, then we don't spend the $40,000. But at least it's there authorizing them to do the work.
My problem
But I-
with that is if we do that, then every problem that currently exists on the school district properties, if we don't come and ask them about helping us financially, then it's assumed, and are we ready to take on every little problem at every school site?
We're gonna have to until we specify it on the contract,
Right,
because it's not on the contract.
right, I
So-
understand that.
Once it's specified, then, you know,
Ultimately, it needs to be fixed.
it needs to get fixed.
We can't have it not fixed, but I do think that we need to have that conversation with the school district and have them, give them the opportunity to tell us no.
Again,
Oh, you said again, okay. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We definitely have to do one first, and then, yes, if that doesn't work, yes, you have to do 3. But we do have to give the school district an opportunity. This is their property. Matter of fact, we should have their consent anytime we're doing capital improvements on their property. We should have their consent. What happens if we decide we're gonna do a capital improvement on your property and we damage or what have you, or something unforeseen when we get down to it, and we got into it deeper than we had anticipated, and then the school district then says, well, you shouldn't have been doing that on our property without our permission in the first place. So it just only makes sense to get the, not the approval of the school district, but allow the school district, 1, the opportunity to participate because it is their property, and 2, to make sure that they are fully aware that we will be doing this type of work on their property, so that all the liability issues and stuff like that would be addressed. I don't know if there would be a problem with it coming back in 2 weeks. We can do this, number 1, right away, and I'm sure I don't know how long it takes for you to figure out if number 1 worked. And if it didn't work, meanwhile, we're talking to the school districts, and we're back in 2 weeks to discuss potentially spending the $40,000 for the drain work. So, with that, that's discussion on the motions. Usually we don't have any discussions on the motions, but we'll make exception this time.
We just wanted to explain the no, that it doesn't mean we
No, I
don't want to
understand.
fix it. We just think it's ready for another option at that point.
Yeah, I understand. Unless there are any further discussion, I'm going to ask the council to vote on the motion.
Okay, motion passes with 3 yeses, 1 abstention, and 1 no.
Okay,
Motion on item 9.
okay. Thank you, madam. That, okay, that would be the order. Let's move ahead to item 9. Yeah, okay. Let's hear the city manager's report.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I was going to mention, actually I was going to bring up that we are working with the school district and we're rescheduling the meeting with them on the negotiations, and I'll reach out after we immediately complete that item we just discussed, and option one, and then we'll reach out to them right away if it doesn't work and it fails, and then we'll have something back to the council in 2 weeks. We've been working with them. I didn't want to inundate the new superintendent. When she went out to National Night Out, Sergeant Osborne and I, the sheriff's LASD had some need from her, and she was just her second day in. So I've been reaching out to her and sending emails, and so we'll work with them on the rest of the joint park issue as well, just so the council's well aware. As the council knows, Julian has moved on since then. I'm overseeing interim, but we also council approved the contract with TransTech, so we'll have them in tomorrow, and they'll start, helping us out for 20 hours a week, because there's a lot of projects in motion that require, a professional engineer, someone with a certification. One which I don't have, the mayor pointed out recently, so I don't have that one. But we're glad he's here to help out, and then we'll get things moving. I have been meeting with staff over at Public Works weekly and daily. We've been working on several of the projects. I have had conversations with the mayor pro tem and other council members, the mayor as well. Over the weekend, sometimes we get hit with a lot of dumping. So I sent an email to the council about robocalls in Spanish and English. They're working on that from Republic Services. I guess there's some misunderstanding from the public about when they can put their stuff out, and then they're getting used to staff coming around picking their stuff up. But I will say that for some reason, people like to throw their stuff right on the parkway. Not sure if it's an educational issue, so we're working on educating the residents and folks in the public about the process, the call Republic to pick up bulky items. So if you see them, we let residents know. We put something on the webpage. We're also still combating the graffiti issue on a daily basis. I didn't get any calls this weekend. I checked my phone. I told the mayor. I sent an email from my personal to my, making sure it was working. So it was working. I didn't get anything, but we are still working with the graffiti issues. Yeah, so I was just making sure, because I was like, hey, I didn't get anything, so I was surprised. But, and then weekly, we're working, Michael Reyes and his staff are working with the outreach with the homeless. We had a successful meeting with PATH. They came last Wednesday. I sent an email out. So that was really good. Looks like they're gonna try to add an additional day. Some of our homeless, the ones that are out on Hawthorne, really need specialized service, mental health services. We were kind of theorizing, staff and I, that they may not be allowed in the encampments that are kind of along the 405. They're kind of pushed out and they're by themselves. But I have noticed that they do need mental health services, which PATH is offering, casework, other housing and those things. So far, Mr. Reyes mentioned that folks are still saying no to services. But I encourage PATH. We've been telling them to get out there, try to reach the folks that really need some help out there. We have a couple of folks that are just really needs really specialized services that we just can't provide. Michael does a great job, and his staff. They go out there and we try to talk to them, try to get them in there, but no luck. We're still seeing. But some of the folks are not. You don't see as many on Hawthorne. They might be taking up some refuge. We think maybe back on Redondo Beach at I guess they call it the pallet housing there. They may be showing up there, and we don't see them sometimes for a couple of days, and then they come back. So there was one success story that we heard, a typical one homeless person that was on Inglewood. They went into care, and then they came back out already. So unfortunately, so they have that option too, to reject the services after they go in. So it is a hard job. We are working on it. We're working with the Homeless Solutions Committee to come up with more solutions to try to address the issue. So just to let the council know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the report, and thank you for the work you guys are doing on the homeless issue. I've seen a marked difference. I've seen some folks that was on the streets, and I guess they moved on to, hopefully they moved into some housing. Some folks I noticed it's not in Lawndale any longer, so it's a tough job. Staying on top of the homeless issues and giving them the services that they need. But I appreciate City Manager's office and Director Reyes' office and what you guys do and make that happen. Yes, and you did have a weekend off. In particular, one favorite wall was left untouched this weekend, which was good, you know, no graffiti on that wall. So, and I saw actually the deputy. I don't know if he was checking on the wall, but he was just parked over there, you know, by the wall. I guess it was Saturday or Sunday, and I'm sure he noticed there was nothing on the wall as well. You know, so thank you for that. Let's hear from Councilmember Pat Kearney.
I just have two items. I attended the Library Trust and Oversight Committee meeting the 10th of this month. There's no action taken. And then I attended Senator Bradford's Back to School Fair and Backpack Giveaway. And there was at least 3 families from Lawndale that I met. They were very appreciative. They thought I did. I said, oh yeah, I took the credit. Oh yeah, it's my backpacks. But it was a great turnout.
Very good. Councilwoman Suarez.
I had a couple things. I attended on the 3rd, which our city manager already spoke in depth about our homeless solutions subcommittee. He already spoke in length, so I'll go to the next one. On August 8th, I attended the South Bay City's Council of Government Steering Committee. That committee specifically sets the agenda for the Board of Directors. And so the Board of Directors meeting is on August 25th, and I would urge residents to attend. There's going to be a couple speakers that should be very interesting. They're going to talk, one of the speakers, which I'm excited to hear, Mark Verville, and it's called, I guess his presentation is called Reality of RENA Housing Target. From what I understand, he brings up issues of such as parking and how having access to a car actually gives you know, low-income and I guess minority groups access to more jobs and stuff like that. So he actually brings up how some of these are impacting them adversely, these groups, as well as a presentation, I believe, on RENA. There was a litigation brought up with regards to the process of how they determine the allocation of housing. So there is going to be a speaker, I think, on that. And that meeting is, again, August 25th. So I would urge, you can go on Zoom, and I believe they might have it in person. They've been doing more Zoom lately, but I think if enough people say they're going to be in person, they might actually have it in their office in Torrance. And then I did attend today on Zoom the Metro Sea Line extension to Torrance. Mainly updates. People ask kind of the common questions that everybody has been asking of them. A lot of it was deferred because the EIR report isn't out yet. So, you know, they couldn't make comments as to for example, you know, what option they're going to choose. The only thing that I did find very, very interesting was they did, which was help for visuals, they did little camera and showed the routes, the proposed routes, and how it would look and where, you know, it would be above grade or below grade, whatever the options were. So they kind of did a little tour with I don't know what you call it, a little visual tour of how it would look like and all of that. And then with that, I'll pass it along. Oh, don't forget, there is a meeting on Wednesday, actually, at Lusinger High School, one of the gyms, and they'll have an in-person meeting. And I'm not sure if it's the same, but the meeting I attended today was informational only, so they didn't have back and forth dialogue. It was mainly ask a question and they'll respond. In fact, they didn't even let people verbally ask the questions. They had you type in the question and then they responded. So if you're interested, I would highly suggest attending that meeting. With that, I'll pass it along.
And what time is that meeting?
6:30 to 8:30.
Councilwoman Cuevas.
On our website.
I have a long list. Have we been able to see if we could put photos on the website when we call in for a big bulk pickup request?
We're looking at that. That request came in where staff's looking at, Beckham is looking at adding that item on, just tweaking we have to talk to the website company to see if we could add that on.
Okay.
That's so when people, for the rest of the council, when people call in, they can upload the pictures directly into because there's limitations on Public Works. Currently, right now, we're looking at doing that, yes.
Thank you. And if there's a cost, would you let us know prior to doing it, so, you know?
Yeah, I think it's not it's part of the contract. Beckham can probably do the language and just pop it in there, and it's adding the icon. There's no cost, really, not much.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to thank Michael and staff for working with the homeless solution and trying to find them homes. And now with PATH, hopefully that will make it easier. I attended the Lawndale Homeless Solutions Standing Committee and with PATH. I also attended the League of California Cities Los Angeles Division Board of Director installation ceremony. The 2022-2023 president is from Diamond Bar. It's Mayor Pro Tem Andrew Cho. I also attended a Beach Cities Relay for Life meeting. I will be representing City of Lawndale. There's a team called Lawndale, so anyone that wants to participate, it's going to be August 27th from, I believe, 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. It's at Alta Vista Park in Redondo Beach. It's a fundraiser for Cancer Society, so anyone that wants to participate, please join Team Lawndale and make a donation. All the funds go into cancer research. It's not for a specific cancer study, it's for the entire society. I also attended the BISSC, which is the Building Industry Association of Southern California, 100th year anniversary reception, where they presented, they're going to be participating in the Rose Ball, in the Rose Parade, and they're doing a beautiful float that the youth designed. So it's very interesting. If you want to work on the float, you could go on their website, and there's an opportunity for volunteering there. Is there any way that Public Works could report at the meetings what streets are being worked on? I got a couple of calls, and I know you took care of them, Sean and Julian, before he left, about streets being closed because we were working on their sidewalks and things like that. Maybe we could announce it at a meeting and inform what streets we're working on. It's based on parking, because some people had to walk a little bit longer than normal.
Yeah, I can talk to staff, ask Grace to come down and give a presentation.
That would be great.
Before we start any more streets, just, let the public know. That's a good idea.
And do we have a set-up date on when the Youth Advisory Committee will start their meeting? That's another question that was asked at the National Night Out.
Yes, I talked to Mike, I asked Mike to start, Mr. Estes, that runs Community Services Department, to start looking at adding their terms. I'm glad you asked that. Their terms are expiring, so we're not going to have I think it's September. So I'd look at starting doing something probably in January or maybe sooner, getting them started and meeting with the school districts and getting them all set. But no sense of having a meeting since they're all termed out because of COVID, they couldn't meet.
Right.
So I did ask him to start pursuing that, and I'll follow up with him again and give you guys all a detail on, what the next steps are.
What's the procedure or the process for someone that wants to be part of the committee? What do they have to do if they're teenagers?
I'd have to
Do you
check.
know?
I don't know. I'd have to get back to you and
If you could
have Mike give you a call if
let me know,
Yeah.
because there's a couple of young ladies that want to participate, but they need to know if they have to fill out an application, and so how do they get it?
I'll check with Mike and have him follow up with you if that's okay, and then get back to you on the process for that. I don't have the details on that.
Thank you.
So
Sorry.
nomination process, right, to get on YAC?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry it was so long, but that was it. Last time I
Well,
had 2 sentences.
Yeah, it balances out.
It balances
Yeah,
out.
it balanced out.
I think you're up by 2 now.
So you're good, it balanced out. Madam Pro Tem.
Well, because you were long, I'll be short. How's that?
Works.
Today I attended the Metro Sea Line Zoom meeting. I just want to encourage all Lawndale residents to please be there at the meeting here at Lusinger High on Wednesday night. It's really important that Lawndale is heard. I'm frustrated, just like everybody else, in the information that they're giving us, or the lack of information that they're giving us. I felt like today that because we could not see on our screen the questions coming across that they were receiving, I felt like they were picking and choosing the questions that they were willing to respond to. And I feared that there were a lot of important questions that were in our community, and we didn't get those across. And so for that, I'm sad. Again, we'll continue working in this manner, but we really need the Lawndale residents to help us so that they can see that it's not just us asking these questions. They're coming from our community. It's impacting our community, not just now, not just 5 years from now. This is generations that they're asking us to change. They're asking us to make, that it's going to affect our property value. When you're hearing, I keep wanting to ask them in a public forum, they keep talking about quiet zones and how they can mitigate sound and so on and so forth. Why don't they show on their previous projects those problems resolved and then come speak to us? Why is it that we can go to other areas and see these problems, and yet we're supposed to take it by faith because they're not proving it? And let's be honest, once it's built, goodbye Lawndale, and they're not going to listen to us. So like I said, I'm in a really frustrated part, just like all of Lawndale residents, but we need Lawndale residents to join us elected in letting them understand our frustration. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. So since Councilwoman Cuevas took up so much of the time, I'm gonna narrow mine down. No, I'm kidding with you. Okay, so I had the opportunity to attend the Metro Sea Line meeting. I attended the first meeting in Redondo Beach. Primarily, my main reason for attending the meeting in Redondo Beach is because we always want to see what Metro is saying to the other communities. In this case, Redondo Beach. At that meeting, it was pretty well attended, held in the gymnasium at the local middle school. At that meeting, it was pretty much what they call a scoping meeting, where they just have all the displays, and you have a chance to look at the displays, and in some cases, you may be able to ask questions of the person that's staffing, that's next to the display, or what have you. They also have the one display that has, like, I guess it was a video, which is on their website as well, that gave an overview of the project or what have you. But you didn't have an opportunity for questions and answers. And that's where we are here in Lawndale. We've seen all the displays. We've been at this for at least 10 years. So we've seen all the displays and that they have when you have the scoping meetings or what have you. So I just wanted to see what they were going to say in Redondo Beach, and I thought they was going to have opportunities for questions and answers, which they didn't. I'm hoping that when we have the meeting here in Lawndale, they will provide for questions and answers, because that's what we've been asking for. We've been asking for opportunities for our residents, our business owners and stakeholders to ask direct questions of the Metro on both routes, proposed routes, and the different configurations or what have you. My concern is going to be a simply informational meeting, And that's probably why, this is just me, maybe that's why they had the informational meeting in Redondo Beach, so they can then say, well, we did exactly the same thing we did in Redondo Beach for Lawndale, you know, what have you. But Lawndale, we have more concerns because we are adversely impacted more than Redondo Beach. So, and that's why it's not as if we're calling for special treatment. We recently sent a letter to Metro, of course, outlining, you know, our dismay or displeasure with their outreach, you know, in the community in terms of the meetings or what have you. And it's not because we're looking for anything special. We're looking for Metro to do their due diligence to make sure that we have our voices are heard, so that this project, now remember, this is not a city project, this is a Metro project. Metro is a metropolitan planning organization with their own powers and authorities that's granted to them by the state of California. In some cases, their authorities supersede the local zoning ordinances and things of that nature, what have you. But we want to make sure that our voices are heard so that this project is mitigated in terms of all the adverse effect that it could have on the community from the start, and not have to have a revisit as we've seen in other communities where they had to come back, you know, after a lot of back and forths and a lot of angry, residents and stakeholders, because Metro should have put in the environmental concerns that should have been in place from day one. And so that's all we're asking for, is nothing special. But we do need everyone's help. I'm going to bring up one issue in particular. And so for those who are not familiar with this project, one of the proposed lines is going down Condon, next to residential homes, the existing railroad track, freight railroad track. We're asking that if they choose that particular option, that they do a trench. And we believed, and it's not that we believed, I know that we had a preliminary agreement for a long time. We hammered that out. The mayor of a particular city gave us insurance that that would be part of what they would look at, right, in this project, because we were concerned that it was going to go through our residential neighborhoods there. We're hearing more and more as of the last conversation we had with them. Madam Pro Tem and I sit on the subcommittee, so we meet at least once a month to talk to Metro about it. We're starting to hear some little backpedal on their commitment to doing a trenching option, and we kind of heard it again today. It was a little more polished today, so you had to really listen to it to catch it, right? Today about the trenching option. There was one area where they said, well, that they'll put a top, of course, on it, the portions that's, at grade, so that, you can cross over it. But as Condon is concerned, most of Condon, the trenching option seemed like they're trying to remove that from the table. That's where I would need the community support and pushing back on Metro to say, if you do choose to go down Condon, which they call the road, we cannot accept anything less than it being trenched. It has to be trenched, and we do want a top. We want a top on it as well, but it definitely have to be trenched. So that's what we need to be a strong message for those who attend the meeting.
And they told us it had to be done now, not later.
And that's, yes, one of the things they said, if you're going to trench it, you have to do it now, because, and it makes sense, without being an engineer, because of some of the sound walls or something like that. In other words, it's kind of harder to go back and say, you know what, I think we want to trench this, right? So it's one of those things to where you should do it now, initially, as opposed to one of those things, the mitigations where we don't want them to come back later, because we don't want them to say, you know what, we could have did that, but it's just too costly to do it now. Right, and so we want to make sure that those are in place now, so we can address the vibrations, noise issues in the aesthetics. Well, fence and all that stuff, that would be addressed in the environmental impact, statements, fences, or whether sound walls and things of that nature, what have you. But we want these things done up front. We want them done the first time and not have to, go to court or just live unhappy, until somebody else decides, to change it. So that's my big, speech for Metro, for those who can make the meeting. If you can't, if you can visit their website, they're still taking comments because we're looking for the environmental impact report, statement to be issued, I believe you said in the spring, next year, 2023.
Like early January, spring.
Early January, spring. And that's really going to drive it as to how they're going to do the mitigations or what have you. And, 2030 and 2033, completion, right? Yeah, that's soon. Yeah. So this is coming up soon. It's been 20 years in the making, but it's coming up soon. So that's all I'll say about Metro, so stay tuned. The other thing I wanted to bring up, Mr. City Manager, if you have an update, but if not, maybe the next time, I want to just get an update on the project that's on the construction project on Manhattan Beach in Inglewood.
Is that
It's not a construction, it's a road repair.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll get you guys an update, and I'll send you an update.
Yeah. And by the way, I've had 2 people commented so far. One was a young adult, how dangerous those corners are, and they're glad that we're doing something, which was the weirdest thing, but a young adult noticed it. And then, of course, the business owner over at Westwood Builders commented about it as well. So we can get an update on how that's coming along and what have you.
I'll get that to the council.
So just for people to know, if there's a lot of traffic, when I got off the freeway, it's a lot of traffic. That's where the traffic is coming from, right? Took a couple of cycles just to get off the ramp or whatever. We can't do anything about that, but people may not know that that's what's happening when you sit on that off ramp for 3 cycles. When usually it's pretty flowing, but that's progress. All right. Well, I think that's all we have. Let's see what else we have on our calendar. Yep, that's all we have tonight. With that, the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Lawndale City Council will be held at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday. What's happening there? Is there a holiday?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there's a holiday.
Okay, Tuesday, September 6th. And these here council chambers is now 8:54. This meeting is adjourned.